That belongs in a museum.
Get a 3-1, a Novice Engineer, Alexstrasza, like they're just really no good targets. It's exactly in this deck for the Doomsayer, so I'd be very surprised if he chose not to play it at this time.
All right, let's see what he chooses. Yeah, we are going to see that Crazed Alchemist come out of that. Again, there really nothing else he was going to use it on this deck, and Napoleon kind of puts his head in his hands a little bit. Obviously, was hoping, you know, after the first...
Instrumental to his game plan in the late game, and now he is falling behind. Cydonia doing exactly what the Zoo wants to do, and Napoleon not having picked up any of those freeze cards yet. He does have Flame Strike, but that is still a couple of turns away.
Yeah, and Cydonia can start using those Dark Peddlers to start trying to look for things like Power Overwhelming, Soulfires, things that are going to help him just go ahead and clear taking the Abusive Sergeant there because it just represents more damage overall, especially if he's going to trade into the Novice Engineer. Why do you potentially take the Mortal Coil over the Abusive Sergeant in that situation?
So Cydonia knows that Napoleon is running 2 Novice Engineers. He's running Acolyte of Pain, so he does have a couple of potential Mortal Coil targets. They're not the best Mortal Coil targets, but in this case, he only has
minions. But at this point, you've already played the Crazed Alchemist, and you're not running Silences, so really the big things that you'd be looking to potentially have a spot on your board for are not there. So I think I like your explanation best, and Cydonia has already got Napoleon pretty far down in health and does draw that Leroy Jenkins, which is a potential finisher.
Actually, Rob, I think your point is very valid as well. As the Zoo deck, you have to be very wary of filling up your board entirely, and we do see that Cydonia has filled it up and now can't play something like the Leroy Jenkins unless he does trade off the minions, which he does have the luxury of doing, so it's not a huge problem here. But if Napoleon had something like Frost Nova, then Cydonia would have essentially nothing to do this turn except Mortal Coiling a Novice Engineer, so it's not going to backfire on him this time, but you generally want to leave one slot open on your board if you have the luxury of doing so.
That's a fair point right there, is being able to play down the Leroy if your entire board is frozen. Cydonia going to be able to easily pop the board and also get rid of the Novice Engineer, and Napoleon is far, far away from that Alexstrasza. Will have the access to Flame Strike, but...
I don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, if he pops the Leper Gnome does 2 damage, and even then the Possessed Villager would leave behind a 1-1.
Yeah, this is just going to be Cydonia's game. The Zoo deck did exactly what it needed to do here. It populated the board consistently, and Napoleon unfortunately just didn't get any of those freezes. If that Doomsayer had a chance to go off on the Darkshire Councilman, then he would certainly be in a much better position here. Does pick up Ice Block, so he's going to have one more turn. Let's see how he can do this. He still can't kill Leper Gnome this turn because he will just be dead. Secrets don't activate on your turn.
Yeah, just going to play out the Forgotten Torch, start playing to potentially some sort of damage win condition, but we see all he has in hand at this point is Ice Lance and Frostbolt, which is far, far away from the 19 damage he would need to deal.
I'm wondering what his game plan is, because if he Flame Strikes next turn, it's still going to leave Argent Squire with 1 attack and 1 health, no Divine Shield, and a 1/1 Possessed Villager. So he could have potentially used Hero Power on the Possessed Villager or used Hero Power on the Divine Shield and look to remove the entire board, but the Leper Gnome still would have just been lethal there. So instead, he picks up that Frost Nova, and he's just going for it.
Yeah, he's going to be real disappointed to see that Mortal Coil. That poor Leper Gnome is about to get sacrificed, but that is going to ice out the game for Cydonia. Could even Power Overwhelming if he chose to. I remember back in the 2014 Americas Championship, we saw a little bit of that on the Leper Gnome, but yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it. Tie up the series. And yeah, this is just the power of Crazed Alchemist, because I think without Crazed Alchemist flipping that situation,